Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Welcome back to our Entitled People, the place where some folks believe the world revolves around them and that they can do whatever they want, whenever they want. In today's episode, we're diving into the nightmare world of parents who think they know best. You'll hear about kids body-checking service dogs, parents harassing strangers in public, and one smug mom who put her own children's safety at risk only to regret it later. So sit back, enjoy the stories, and maybe try not to shake your eye. Head to heart. As always, if you'd like to share your own tale, you can send or link your post to the email below. Let's jump right in. Here's some backstory first. I live in the UK. One of my close friends was adopted by a sweet older couple. They'd also adopted a girl who was blind and carried heavy scarring around her eyes. This couple loved big dogs. Their latest addition was the offspring of a husky German Shepherd cross and an Irish Wolfhound, a massive, fluffy, gorgeous animal. One of these pups was trained to be a guide dog for their blind daughter, and during training, he grew incredibly protective of her. That matters for what's coming. For clarity, the blind girl will be Zoe, my friend will be Brienne, and the service dog is Echo. One afternoon, I went to Brienne's place for help with schoolwork. Once we were done, the three of us decided to take Echo for a walk to give him some exercise. Zoe wrapped a headscarf around her hair, slipped on oversized dark glasses to cover her scars, and grabbed her white cane before we left. We headed to a nearby park and let Echo off the leash for a run. After 20 minutes, a woman and her son arrived. Immediately, I clipped Echo back onto his lead and put on his bright service vest that clearly read, "Service dog, do not pet." Echo instantly switched into work mode, guiding Zoe calmly. We sat down on benches not far from the woman. Let's call her Karen. Echo settled in front of us. We were just chatting when suddenly we heard squealing and pounding footsteps. Karen's son had spotted Echo. Before we could react, he sprinted over and body slammed the poor dog in a bear hug. Echo yelped, writhing in distress, while the boy pinned him to the ground, shouting, "Mommy, look at this dog!" Karen didn't even glance up from her phone. Brienne rushed forward, pulled the kid off Echo, and firmly said, "Please don't touch our dog." The boy screamed, lashed out, and punched her hard in the stomach. She doubled over and dropped him, at which point he lunged for Echo again. Thankfully, the dog darted away, and the boy tripped, bursting into tears. All of this happened in barely a minute. Hearing her son cry, Karen finally shot up from the bench and began shrieking at us. "What the hell are you doing? Don't you dare touch my child." Her screaming terrified Zoe, who started shaking. Brienne tried to explain. "Ma'am, your child attacked my sister's service dog. Please take him away." Karen glanced at Echo's vest, scoffed, and snapped. "Well, you shouldn't bring a service dog to a public park then, should you?" At that moment, Zoe quietly asked, "Guys, can we go?" But Karen had noticed her headscarf and glasses. A fit of rage, she started hurling insults, calling her a terrorist, and barked, "Look at me when I'm talking to you." Then she yanked off Zoe's scarf and glasses, throwing them to the ground. Two things happened instantly. Karen screamed in horror at Zoe's scars. Her son launched himself at Echo again. This time the dog had had enough. He leapt to his feet, planted himself protectively in front of Zoe, bared his teeth, and barked fiercely. Karen, still screeching, whipped out her phone, called the police, and dragged her son away, yelling that Echo was dangerous and that we would be arrested. Zoe was shaking and traumatized, so Brienne called her dad for help. He arrived just as the police did. Karen gave her version of events while we explained the truth. The officer asked if Echo had bitten the boy. We all said no, he had only knocked him over to protect Zoe. The cop then said the child had scratches on his arms. Turns out, while waiting for police, Karen had deliberately scratched her own kid to fake evidence. As we were being questioned a short distance from the bench, Karen let her son wander freely again. He immediately ran back toward Echo. This time, Brienne's father stepped in and calmly told him he couldn't touch a service dog. Karen exploded again, screaming about creepy old men talking to children, and even spat at him. That's when the officers detained her. She kept insisting Echo was aggressive and should be put down. In the end, we weren't sure whether she faced a fine or jail time. The police just told us we could leave. Zoe, though, was left deeply shaken and avoided going out for a long time afterward. As for Karen's son, I hope he grows out of the entitlement his mother is teaching him, though, honestly, with her influence, I'm not optimistic. And yes, this mom was absolutely unhinged, shoving a blind girl, calling her names, scratching her own child to play victim. It's terrifying to think that child is in her care. That's just the first story. But before moving on, someone commented, "My cousin has a service dog. And even though her experiences aren't quite this extreme, she's dealt with plenty of shocking encounters. Some people seem drawn to harassing service dogs, even when the vest is clear." If you thought that was over the top, the next story will make your jaw drop. A 15-year-old volunteer at a riding school shares what happened when another entitled mom and her child decided they knew better than the stable staff. This riding school allows kids to ride gentle horses during open days. But there's one horse nicknamed Dangerous Horse who stands 6 feet tall, is unpredictable, and absolutely unsafe for children. Despite the rules, one kid bolted straight toward him, screaming, "I want to ride this one." The horse spooked. The boy repeated himself, and when told no, he argued that the horse doesn't look dangerous. His mom arrived, demanded her son be allowed to pet the animal, and ignored every warning. Finally, the kid lunged one more time, and the horse swung his head, smacking him on the chin. Luckily, he wasn't knocked out. Crying, he and his mom stormed off, only for the narrator to later hear commotion out front, curious about what happened next. When I rounded the corner, I spotted Karen and her brat arguing with the handler about which horse they wanted. The kids had a choice of 5 ponies, but her little prince threw a fit. He didn't want a pony. No, he demanded to ride the largest horse on the property, a beast we all called Dangerous Horse. For nearly 10 minutes, Karen bickered with the instructor, insisting her son should have his way. Finally, when the kid dissolved into tears, she scooped him up and stormed right in my direction. She stomped straight to Dangerous Horse's stall and yanked at the door, only to discover the tricky latch system designed to stop the animals from letting themselves out. Naturally, she couldn't figure it out either. She spun toward me and barked, "Open this door and bring my son's horse out." When I didn't move fast enough for her liking, she shrieked, "What are you standing there for? Get this stupid animal out for my boy." I told her flatly, "That's not happening. It's not part of the pony rides." Karen sneered back. "He is now. Hurry up. I paid, and my son wants him." At that moment, the instructor returned, carrying Dangerous Horse's saddle and bridle. She looked at me, not Karen, and said, "Tack him up quickly." Karen's smirk was priceless. She truly believed her son had one. I saddled the massive horse, towering at 3 times the child's height, and led him from the stall. Of course, I knew full well the instructor would never allow that kid near the saddle. Still, it was entertaining watching him bounce with excitement. Karen grinned smugly and asked, "Okay, where does he climb on?" The instructor responded, but her eyes stayed locked on me. "Normally we mount just around the corner. But you're going to get on here." Then she handed me my helmet. Karen exploded. "Why are you giving that to her? My son is riding." "Eh?" The instructor didn't flinch. "I've told you 100 times already. Your son is too small, and this horse is dangerous." She helped me mount, and I rode into the arena. The kid trailed after me, whining at the gate until the instructor stopped him. And remember how I said Dangerous Horse had a habit of bolting and bucking? He lived up to his name. The moment we entered the arena, he shot forward, bucking like we were in a rodeo. He tossed and kicked for several minutes before finally calming. When I glanced back, Karen's face was frozen in horrified disbelief. Then, she actually had the audacity to yell, "Why would you let my son on that monster? He could have been killed." She grabbed her child and stormed off. Safe to say, she won't be pestering us again anytime soon. But you've got to laugh at how she immediately tried to twist it. "What? You wanted my son to ride that dangerous beast?" Honestly, how clueless can people be? If someone warns you something is dangerous, it's dangerous. What scares me is that kid's future. The mother who ignores real risks just to indulge his tantrums. One day it could end in tragedy. And worse. People like her are quicker to shout lawsuit than to protect their own children. Here's a bit of backstory for context. I'm a volunteer firefighter in a small town of about 18,000. Why does that matter? Because our local sports facility has an artificial ice rink cooled with ammonia chemical nasty enough to burn your airways, cause swelling in the lungs, and even destroy tissue if inhaled. We trained regularly for worst-case leaks. Last summer, at around 7 p.m., we got an alarm, strong odor at the sports complex. Every firefighter who saw that message knew instantly something serious was happening. Since we're volunteers, we weren't at the station. We had to rush there first before heading to the scene. The second we climbed out of the truck, the stench hit us. Ammonia burned our noses and eyes, confirming this was no false alarm. Before our leader even gave orders, we were already strapping on breathing gear. The problem? We were badly understaffed. It was midweek and 5 youth soccer teams, maybe. 200 kids plus coaches were still practicing nearby. Our chief ordered us to set up a perimeter, green zone, mobile HQ, and waiting area for unassigned firefighters. Yellow zone, outer danger zone, off limits to civilians. Red zone, inner danger zone, requiring full decontamination to enter or exit. Black zone, ground zero, the cooling plant where the ammonia leak originated. Only specialists in full hazmat. Suits were allowed inside. I sent teammates to establish barriers while we waited for professional crews with proper equipment. My assignment was to guard the decon station, geared up and ready. Soon the pros arrived. I helped them into their bulky suits and 2 headed off toward the leak. Minutes later, chaos struck. Karen appeared. Yes, that. Karen. She marched straight into the black zone, carrying a toddler in one arm and dragging along a 6-year-old who was already coughing hard. The toddler whimpered while she breezed past like this was nothing. She actually tapped me and said, "Excuse me?" I snapped, "Lady, what the hell are you doing?" Calm as anything, she replied, "How long is this little training exercise going to take? I need to get my kids home for dinner." My jaw hit the floor. "This isn't training. You're in a contaminated zone. Get over here now." But she ignored me. "Just open the barriers so I can drive out." I shouted, "Are you insane? Look at your kids there being poisoned. Get over here right now." Toddler started crying and the boy croaked, "Mommy, my throat hurts. I can't breathe." Every instinct in me wanted to vault the barrier and grab those kids, but I couldn't risk her bolting deeper into the danger zone or dropping her child in the struggle. Thankfully, the 2 hazmat guys returning from the facility saw her. They rushed over, scooped up the children, and dragged Karen to safety. She kicked, screamed, and threatened to report them, but they didn't loosen their grip. The chief arrived. Furious. "What the hell is going on?" She walked straight past the barrier. She wanted to drive her car out. He turned on her. "Are you out of your mind? You just endangered your children's lives for your car?" Karen shrieked back. "He wouldn't open the gate, and that man assaulted me. He grabbed my neck. This is kidnapping. I'll sue." The chief didn't blink. "Perfect. I'll call the police for you." And sure enough, a few minutes later, officers arrived. Meanwhile, EMTs gave masks to her kids. Karen lashed out at them too, trying to kick one of the medics. That's when a cop barked, "Lady, shut your mouth and get over here." I took the opportunity to step forward. "Sorry, officer. She can't leave the zone until she's decontaminated." The instant I said the word decontaminated, Karen froze. Her face drained from furious red to sheet-white panic. "What does that mean? Am I in danger?" The chief caught my eye. He knew exactly where I was going with this. The officer nodded and replied, "That's correct. No one can leave the danger zone without proper decontamination. I'll get some female firefighters to assist her." Then he walked away. Karen, now sputtering in outrage, demanded, "What? What does that mean? Someone answer me?" Calmly explained, "Since you've been exposed to a hazardous substance, you'll need to remove all your clothing and step into the decontamination area. We'll help you wash off any possible contaminants. This is the standard procedure. Everyone, including us firefighters, has to follow it. We strip down, seal our clothes in hazard bags, step into the shower, and rinse off for several minutes. And let me add, the water comes straight from a hydrant, so it's ice cold. There's no private booth, no special exceptions for women, and no time for modesty. One of the firefighters in a hazmat suit grinned and joked, "I can scrub your back if you'd like." Karen froze in shock, stammering, "You can't do that. I have rights," I replied. "Sorry, lady. That's just the procedure. You brought this on yourself." A few minutes later, the chief returned and said, "Bad news. All the female firefighters are occupied elsewhere." Karen's face went pale, and she looked on the verge of hyperventilating. Before things went further, the chief ended the act and clarified, "The good news is the situation's been resolved. You're no longer at risk. However, EMTs will still take your children to the hospital for precautionary checks." I hopped over the barrier, took Karen by the arm, and with the hazmat, Guy escorted her straight to the police, who wanted a word with her. Despite the fact that she had repeatedly kicked him, neither the firefighter nor the EMTs pressed charges. A few weeks later, I ran into one of the police officers at another emergency. He told me they had indeed filed charges because she had endangered her children. Unfortunately, as volunteer firefighters, we deal with people like this far too often. That's why whenever you see firefighters or EMTs, you should give them the respect they deserve. Honestly, I'm just thankful the kids were safe in the end. Her behavior was beyond reckless, downright unbelievable. Someone online summed it up perfectly. This woman needs a cartoon mallet to the head for endangering her kids. Ammonia can burn skin even in low concentrations. And honestly, my favorite part was watching her panic when she thought she'd have to go through decontamination while being scrubbed down by a stranger. Of course, I already knew she hadn't been exposed badly enough to require it. I just wanted to watch her squirm a little now. Let me tell you about the most entitled person I've ever personally met. I was in the lunchroom at work enjoying a bowl of pea soup while watching videos on my phone, when a woman I'd never seen before barged in. Without so much as a glance, she plopped her baby carrier, diaper bag, and shopping bag right onto my table. The carrier clipped the edge of my bowl, catapulting soup everywhere onto her shopping bags, the chair, and even the carrier itself. It was honestly impressive, though no one else witnessed it. Before the mess even landed, she left the room to go talk to our boss. I checked the baby, thankfully. He was unharmed and hadn't been splashed. But my lunch break is only 30 minutes, and she'd already wasted 10 of them. So I wasn't about to spend the rest cleaning her mess. I headed across the street to grab McDonald's. By the time I returned and sat at my desk with my food, my supervisor came over with the classic, "We're not supposed to eat at our desks" reminder. I explained what happened. He peeked into the lunchroom, chuckled, and said, "Enjoy your lunch." Halfway through my McChicken, my supervisor called me to the boss's office. Inside sat my boss and the furious woman. My boss asked, "Why? Did you dump soup all over her things?" "I didn't," I replied. He pressed, "Weren't you eating pea soup?" I said yes. "Then how did her belongings end up covered in soup?" I explained. "She dropped her baby carrier onto my food. The soup went flying." I wasn't about to lose my entire lunch break cleaning up, so I went and bought another meal. At that, she shrieked, "He's lying. He did it on purpose. He could have burned my baby? Now my new clothes are ruined. You're paying for everything, plus the carrier, plus my purse." "There was no purse, by the way." I asked, "What possible reason would I have to dump soup on your things?" Then I turned to my boss and said, "Check under the baby carrier." Confused, he lifted it. Underneath were my placemat paper towel, plastic utensils, plate, and bag of saltines, clear proof that I'd been eating there when she knocked everything over. My boss sighed and told her, "Karen, go home." She protested about her ruined clothes, but he repeated, "Take your stuff and leave." Turns out, she was actually one of the supervisors who had been on maternity leave before I was hired. She had only come by to show off all the expensive clothes she'd just bought. Now they were drenched in pea soup and couldn't be returned. On her way out, she even snatched half of my McChicken and tossed it in the trash to make up for it. My boss handed me a McDonald's gift card and gave me an extra break to replace my food. Thankfully, I'll never have to work under her because I start supervisor training next week. Honestly, my biggest question is, how is she still employed at all? She left her baby unattended for half an hour, blamed me for her mistake, and then deliberately threw away my food. At least deserves a shoe to the head for that last stunt. And that, my friends, is our entitled people.